For today's episode, we want to talk about something that is vitally important for your success, not just like financially. Yes, it's a huge part of it financially, but just in life, in your overall well-being. And that is, what are your daily habits? People ask me all the time offline. I'll get DMs of like, what does your morning routine look like? What do your habits look like? And I love talking about that stuff because a lot of that is really the secret sauce. Like Ian, I could teach you exactly what to do to run a successful short-term rental business. But if you don't have a lot of these keystone habits in place, it can fall by the wayside very, very quickly. Right. So Eve, why don't we kick things off with, because this has evolved over time too. It's set and done. So what's like your morning habits look like now? And maybe how has that evolved over time? And then I'll chime in.
Yeah. So I think, and we probably got on this bandwagon kind of at the same time. So, I mean, I don't think it's been a secret that people that wake up early, right, the early bird gets the worm, right? That's always been a saying that hasn't changed. But a couple of years back, Hal Elrod came up with this book called The Miracle Morning. And I think that's where I kind of really understood. So I've always worked out in the morning just because I used to be an athlete. So that's always been part of how I do it. But back at that time, when we started doing Hal Elrod, his savers, right? So if you've heard of Hal Elrod, read that book, has now released a ton of them specific to all the different industries and how to like gear it to whatever it is that you do.
What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host
Emanuele Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I am your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emanuele Pani. What is going on, E?
My brother, so good to see you. It's been a little while. So so much has happened, right? The Cove has a bar now that is now open for guests, which is congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I have gotten my Florida broker's license. So we are in the process of opening our real estate brokerage. So if any of our listeners are in South Florida, you're real estate investors into Airbnb, would love to have like-minded people join the team. So super exciting. I just came off of this past weekend in Miami. There was that Bitcoin conference. So I got to see a bunch of the GoBundance guys and just had a chance to do a little mastermind session. And I was reminded of the power of hanging out with people doing great things and how it makes us feel better, especially as entrepreneurial kind, just having like-minded people up to amazing things. One of our friends there has a real estate team up in DC area. You know him as well. Their production last month was 92 million. 92 million production for a real estate team. That's no joke. So it's just inspiring, you know what I mean? Like it really shows you what's possible, you know? But how was opening the bar? What was that experience like?
It was good. I'll be honest. Like I was nervous. I've never run a bar. I don't even drink. So I was like, I'm trying to make sure everything goes smooth, but we had a great team. We got interviewed on a local TV podcast show called Good Morning Gloucester. So that was a lot of fun. Those guys were a blast. They came up. We did a live interview from the deck. Kristen and I got to introduce some of the team. So that was a lot of fun. And it went well. I honestly didn't do a ton of marketing for the opening weekend just because I think I was nervous. I wanted to make sure that everything went smooth. We had all of our operations dialed in, like work out any kinks.
Yeah.
But it went well. Like we had a really good first weekend. Things were going well. For our local folks, it's open Wednesday to Sunday, 1 to 6. And so that's up in Rockport, Massachusetts, Cove at Rockport. And I mean, I'm just super proud of the way it came out. I mean, it looks unbelievable. Like it's so nice. I mean, all new deck, like with a bar top, literally overlooking the ocean. Like it's amazing. Like I'm super
Yeah.
proud of how it came out. It was
Yeah.
definitely a long road to get that and to get all the licenses approved and then get the actual construction done and all that. But I'm super pumped with the way it turned out. It was really good.
Yeah. And it probably feels awesome, like walking away from the property and like just looking back and remembering when you guys got there and all the work that you've have done to renovate it and bring it back and bring it up, really, because it brought it back to a whole new level of glory. It probably feels so good. Also, pretty awesome. We got nominated last week and was one of the top 22 podcasts by You're Welcome to listen to for the short-term rental industry. Obviously, that couldn't happen without all of you guys that listen to us and send us messages and everything else. So we really appreciate it. So yeah, man, we're
That's
just
awesome. Yeah.
grateful.
Thank you to
Yeah.
everybody. I didn't even know about it till Tasha, you sent me that.
Yeah,
link
my
from
wife
Tasha.
just
I was
randomly
like,
found it. Yeah, on an
cool.
email. We're like, damn, awesome.
Yeah.
Good for
So
us.
that was cool, man.
Yeah.
That was cool. So today we want to pivot a little bit, talk about something different that we've hinted at a lot, but we haven't really done an episode dedicated to this. So and this really applies to anybody, even if you don't have any short-term rentals yet. You know, this is something that is going to hit home for everybody. And before I'm going to leave this as a little cliffhanger. Before we get into it for today, this week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I am doing a live 60-minute training. I don't do these very often. It's usually like every couple months. I'm calling it the Rise of the Short-Term Rental Investor. You can go to strsecrets.com/webinar. It's totally free. Like I said, I only do them like literally once every 2 months or so. I was checking, the last one I did was April 11th, I believe. And so again, I don't do it very often because we do a lot of content here, but this is like a full deep dive training talking about how to launch, automate, and scale, learning all the systems, learning how to identify properties, learning how to build up a portfolio, even if you don't own them or if you don't have any money. So I'm going to do a real deep dive on that. I've actually got Mike Riley. He's going to be hanging out with me, chiming in a little bit at the end on his experience and what he's been able to create in the last 12 months, which has been incredible to watch him do that. And so again, guys, go to strsecrets.com/webinar. You can go over there and register. It's totally free. It is through Zoom and it's capped at 100 people. So we get a lot of people that listen to the show now. So whenever you hear this, go online and register, because once we hit 100, it's tapped out. Like you won't be able to get in. So go check that out. Now,
that's June 9th, this Wednesday.
June 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
And if you register, even if you can't make it live, you'll get a copy of the replay. So make sure you just register. Okay. But for today's episode, we want to talk about something that is vitally important for your success, not just like financially. Yes, it's a huge part of it financially, but just in life, in your overall well-being. And that is, what are your daily habits? People ask me all the time offline. I'll get DMs of like, what does your morning routine look like? What do your habits look like? And I love talking about that stuff because a lot of that is really the secret sauce. Like Ian, I could teach you exactly what to do to run a successful short-term rental business. But if you don't have a lot of these keystone habits in place, it can fall by the wayside very, very quickly. Right. So Eve, why don't we kick things off with, because this has evolved over time too. It's set and done. So what's like your morning habits look like now? And maybe how has that evolved over time? And then I'll chime in.
Yeah. So I think, and we probably got on this bandwagon kind of at the same time. So, I mean, I don't think it's been a secret that people that wake up early, right? The early bird gets the worm, right? That's always been a saying that hasn't changed. But a couple of years back, Hal Elrod came up with this book called The Miracle Morning. And I think that's where I kind of really understood. So I've always worked out in the morning just because I used to be an athlete. So that's always been part of how I do it. But back at that time, when we started doing Hal Elrod, his savers, right? So that's if you've heard of Hal Elrod, read that book, has now released a ton of them specific to all the different industries and how to like gear it to whatever it is that you do. But kind of briefly, I always wake up, drink as much coffee as I possibly can to kickstart my day. and then head to the gym. And then mine is usually followed by, when I come home, I'll meditate. And then when I'm in a good high vibration state, I'll sit down, I'll journal, I'll read, um, and then just eat a super healthy breakfast. I've gotten away over the years from the intermittent fasting just because it was not working out for me specifically. And I think that's another big secret about habits. Is they're your habits. So it's not, you can see that Oprah or Jeff Bezos of Elon do all these different things, but that's what has come to work out for them over time. And I think being kind of committed to what actually gives you energy. So to me, like I used to try to meditate as soon as I woke up, and I realized that most of the time I was asleep. I would just fall back asleep because it just wasn't a realistic time for me. Right. So also playing around with the order of how we do things, I think is very important to see what works for you. Right. You can meditate, and your habits, your daily habits does not mean that all your habits have to happen in the morning. They don't have to happen in a particular sequence or for a particular amount of time. Right. That can be really up to you and whatever is your personal preference.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so I'm much more of a night owl. So I know you get up super early. You're up at what, like 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that. You're at the gym.
4:35. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why if you try to text me after 8:39, you won't be able to reach me because I pass out.
So for me, what I found is I used to do that a lot, but what I found is I was burning the candle at both ends. So like for me, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just from school or whatever, like my brain turns on at night and gets like very creative. So I can crank out a lot of work at night. So like, I'll do a lot of my work till 10, 11, 11:30ish, and then I'm up at 6:30. So I get like my 7 hours in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when I used to force myself to get up at 5 or 5:30, when you slim that down to 5 to 6 hours a night, for me, I found that it would catch up with me. And, every few weeks it was like I would get a cold or something because my body was like, dude, you need to sleep. So,
Yeah.
a lot of those books that talk about like, you don't need sleep, I call bullshit on that. I think that's total BS. For me, my body, I need like 7 hours is like my baseline. If I can get more, great, but 7 hours, like I'm good.
Yeah.
And then for me, I like to get up. I've got my nice little home gym now. So one new habit that I've implemented, kudos to my wife, because she's down, I think like 11 pounds in the last couple of weeks. And she just started drinking a ton of water. So we're doing like 120 ounces a day. So I've got like my 30-ounce canteen here. If I can get 4 of these in a day, and just by doing that, I'm noticing I'm drinking way less coffee. Like I would drink 2, 3 Starbucks decaf. Like I don't even do the caffeine, but it's more just like the mental thing. Like I like to have my coffee when I'm working, and I used to have a bunch of those. Now, like I'll have like maybe 1 like grande instead of like 3 large venti coffees every single day.
Yeah.
And just doing that, I'm definitely noticing a difference. My body's feeling better because I'm not so dehydrated all the time. So starting off, kind of hyper hydrating with like 16 ounces of water, brush my teeth, come downstairs. I've been doing a lot of more like PT workouts. So I've had some back issues for a long time. So now I get my workout in, but it's more like PT focus, really like strengthening my core, my lower back, a lot of yoga, stuff like that. Blending in some tonal workouts, some Peloton workouts. And then I'll take a steam. Like I'm a big steam guy, and I'm super blessed now to have a steam shower in my basement. So I utilize that once or twice a day. And I'll visualize when I take a steam, I'll steam for like 10 minutes maybe before I actually shower. And I'll just visualize like my goals, like as if I've already achieved them, and then how I want my day to go. So if I've got a big meeting that day, or if I've got some different things going on, I'll visualize them like exactly how I want them to go, like in vivid detail of like, this is exactly how this is going to go, getting the results that I want. By doing that, it puts me in like a prime state. Then I'll shower up, get dressed, come to my desk, do my journaling routine. So I've got a journal right here that I write out. And that has evolved for me over time too. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to journal, but for me, the phase that I'm in right now, I journal about what does what does the ideal version of Mike look like? Like, how do I want to operate at a high level and how do I want to be? And I journal that out and then I record my affirmations. I do 3 minutes out loud of affirmations. And this is fairly new to me. I've been doing this as part of a different mastermind group that I'm in, where every day we all post our affirmations and we got to record at least 3 minutes. And it's been helping me build that habit. Because I'll be honest, the weakest habit that I've had has always been affirmations. I always felt weird doing it like out loud or whatever. But by doing this consistently, it's amazing. Like when you put pen to paper in your journal and then you vocalize those affirmations out loud and you hear yourself say those things, you start to manifest things a lot faster. And you start to adapt yourself to that ideal version of whatever you're trying to achieve. And that's been a game changer for me. So if I'm being honest, I've gotten a little further away from the meditation than I have in the past, but I've implemented a lot more of the affirmations mixed with the journaling and the visualization. I know Hal wants us to do all of it, but for me, that's what my morning routine looks like now. So
yeah,
I think as long as you're blending in something that works for you, like something that is going to prime you to be in a good state for the day, that's what's going to make you hyper productive and efficient.
Yeah.
And while we're on that topic, why don't you want to pivot to like planning and like being productive?
Yeah. I mean, also like touching on the habits, the real reason why I feel they're important, and it ties perfectly with where we're going, is it creates repetition. And so if you're able to start doing things the same way every day, your body will automatically expect it, right? So if you do a big workout followed by a healthy meal, you meditate, you ground yourself, and then every day you spend. So I really started becoming super protective of my mornings, because I do realize, instead being very opposite to you, like I work out best in the morning. And if I can stay, so what I do now is I do all of my morning routines, then I do a team meeting with my personal assistant, make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then I'll go in from like 9 to 12 into a specific topic. And I do that every time, so my body knows automatically. I'm like, okay, this is how we operate. And then another thing that we started doing through Rock is it's planning our week on Sundays, right? And Rock used to call it Sunday System for Success, but it's really kind of going and looking at the week and really looking at it from a high level of, yes, everything that you want to accomplish, yes, everything that you have kind of scheduled already, but also what Mike was saying earlier is, who are you trying to be this week? What does the best version of E looks like this week? And how to approach things, right? So a lot of the times now, as I'm preparing for a meeting, or I have a meeting written out, I'll envision not just how I want the meeting to go, but just how I want to feel as myself as I go into that, right? So this weekend also, I went to this event down in Miami, and I visualize, how do I want to show up for that event? How do I want to lead? How do I want to contribute? And then you just go out and you make it happen. And then you're in so much congruency with the way that you see yourself. And that happens over time. I agree with you on the affirmations. The affirmations are very difficult at the beginning, because you have, I don't know, you have that little side of you that likes to make fun of you, or at least I do, right? And that voice is so loud when I do affirmations, because a lot of times there are things that I'm working on that have not yet happened. And if I'm not mentally super strong that day, and I'm having a little doubts, when I'm doing my affirmation, I'll hear that little voice in the back of my mind just being like, this is bullshit. I know you don't even really believe it, right? So what I started doing for my visualization is I actually do it when I do my cardio. So I just kind of like have almost like a mantra of things that I repeat myself as I'm running. And that way it actually makes it easier, because it allows me to stay more in my body, and I'm already kind of primed up. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized. So that really helps kind of like solidify it in. And then I let my mind kind of wander, because anyways, you're kind of doing cardio, so you don't have anywhere to go. So it's kind of like this active visualization / affirmation, but more as a mantra that ties into what I am envisioning my life as. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think one of the keys is when you're planning out your weeks is to before you just start writing down this to-do list, right? Because a to-do list can become like the to-die list at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Because some of the stuff that you're writing on your to-do list, like it's been there for a month or 6 months or whatever. Like, and those things are fine, but you want to take a look at what were my annual goals and what call it 2 to 3 things can I do this week to move the needle on those goals, because the other stuff is just noise. Like, it's stuff that you have to get done, but it's just noise against the goals. So
Yeah.
what are key things that you can implement this week that you're going to schedule into your calendar? So you write out all those things and you schedule them on your calendar. So like for me, I live and die by my calendar. So like if somebody's trying to get in touch with me, like I literally do not answer this thing unless it's on my calendar. It goes to voicemail and then I'll call people back at my convenience. So I'm very protective with my time, and that's how I'm able to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're intentional about your scheduling and you're seeing how the things that you're doing are tying into your bigger vision of your goals, that's what's going to help you actually move the needle every single week, instead of letting a month go by or a quarter go by and you're like, man, I didn't do anything towards those goals. You don't want to get in that habit. So if you plan
Yeah.
out your weeks, and then the last thing I do at the end of the day before I wrap up is I review my calendar for the next day. So I know, okay, I don't have to think in the morning. Like I get up and I just execute because I've already thought through what is my day going to look like the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more you can do that, even if it's as simple as if I'm going to work out, if I'm planning to work out in the morning, I'll have my bike shorts or whatever, my workout gear, like in the bathroom ready to go. So I literally just roll out of bed, put on those clothes, and then just go downstairs. I don't have to think about it. Like it's just ready and prepped. The
Yeah.
more you can take those little mini obstacles out, the easier it's going to be for you.
Mm-hmm. And there is a great book on that, which is Atomic Habits, and what he talks about on there is if you are doing some things well already, you should already build on top of them. So kind of like what Mike was saying too, is just like it doesn't necessarily, to me, what makes a habit work is just that you do it. I don't care when you do it. Right. So if your morning routine is not ideal for you, you're not a morning person, don't try to make it make it work. But if you're a night owl and you like reading at night, then add meditation or add journaling, right? So build on things that you already naturally like to do and they have become a second nature. They're already a habit. It's a lot easier to build on top of a habit than it is to implement a brand new habit or move a habit that you do at a different time of the day earlier, especially if you're like are busy, have kids and everything else. It's very complicated. Um, the other thing that and part of the reason why we wanted to talk about this as it's the beginning of June is we are 6 months in and you have probably set up some new habits of things that you wanted to accomplish at the beginning of the year. And what I've come to find out about goals is I always put them bigger, right? Like shoot for the moon, you might land through the among the stars, right? But also go back now and seeing if there is goals that you keep not hitting, and ask yourself why. Because if you have a goal that you have had on your calendar since the beginning of January and you still haven't got to it, it either does not belong there or you're avoiding doing it because something, right? And a lot of the times, the avoiding of doing something is just your limiting belief holding you back. So, because it's a lot easier for you to say, well, I didn't have time, than for you to say, I tried and actually failed, right? So it's easier to leave it there. But at the same time, there is an emotional toll that you pay every time you write down your goals and then you look back at them and you don't accomplish them. Or at least in my personal experience, right? There is something rewarding of being able to look back at your goals and look at that you've checked off 80% to 90% of what you had for that week. You checked that off. Because to me, that's really what I try to aim. I don't think anybody hits 100% of their goals in all of the areas in their life every single week. But what I try to aim is like a C plus, B minus, right? So that like 70, 75, 80, 85% of my goals, because if you try to go for 100% every single day, all the time, it's not real.
I think the key is to maintain momentum, right? So if you're not maintaining momentum and if you're not moving that needle, then to your point, you're feeling out of integrity with the goals that you're setting and you're losing confidence. So even starting with something as simple as I'm going to get up at 5:30 or I'm going to get up at 6:30, whatever it is. It could be something so simple like that. And just force yourself to do it. It starts to build momentum and then you can add more and more and more. Don't try and get up earlier, quit smoking, lose 50 pounds and start a new business all at the same time, right? It's like,
it's impossible.
You want to tackle one thing and keep moving the needle forward every week. I think that's a key piece of it.
Yeah. And it's also the reinforcement of who you are along the process. And again, I'm speaking on this podcast super personally because I do go through this a lot and I tend to be a very hard judge on myself. But I've also realized over time that when I do share that part of myself is the part that relates the most to the majority of people because we're all kind of experiencing the same human condition and we're all very hard on ourselves. It's understanding that like it takes time, right? It's for you to create a new habit, for you to change yourself, for you to change your identity. It takes time. The same way you didn't get 50 pounds overweight overnight. It's going to take you some time. And sometimes you've walked into the forest very, very far and you want to walk out and it just takes time. So you got to give time where time is due and just have kind of kindness along the way. And adding that into your affirmations, right? In a very simple way, every day, in each way, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Right? Something simple like that you can really like tie it in to when you feel a little discouraged or you fall off the wagon. Just get back up and be like, okay, every day in each way, I'm getting better and better. And then just like really like reinforcing it and anchoring in that feeling that you have kindness towards yourself and then that you're a work in progress.
100%. Consistency is always the key, right? Even something as simple as this podcast, right? It's been over a year now, and there's been some weeks where we're both completely slammed, and we're like, we got to stay consistent. Like, we got to stay consistent, right? Even like this week, right? I think it's going to come out like a day late because we both got bogged down in some stuff last week. But we're like, we're not going to miss a week. Like, even if it's a day late, fine. Like, we're going to get it out. So I think consistency is key. So let's just put a bow on this. And how do we make this applicable to short-term rentals? So I think part of this is going to be dependent on like what phase you are at with this business. So some of the listeners are thinking about this. Maybe they're just hearing about it. Some of them are committed to it and they're hunting for deals. So I think it's going to depend on what phase you're at, but just think about what are some of those keystone habits that you can do for the phase of your business that you're in now. So if you're just still exploring, it's like, okay, I'm going to commit to listening to the STR Secrets podcast every single week. I'm going to go back. I'm going to spend 30 minutes a day researching this, going on this live training this week, watching any of the YouTube videos, some of the snippets, following Mike and E on Instagram, following them on Clubhouse, whatever it is, like commit to 30 minutes a day of education. If you're already in the game, okay, cool. Now you're getting some education. Then it's, okay, I'm going to hit up, I don't know, 20 potential properties a week or whatever the number is, doesn't matter. Pick a number and stay consistent on, okay, I'm going to prospect every single week for X number of properties and I'm going to run numbers on deals. And then once you've gotten past that point, then it's like, okay, now I'm going to put in, I don't know, 3 offers a week or talk to 5 property owners who want to co-host or rental arbitrage, whatever it is. And just set those metrics for yourself to stay consistent and keep building momentum, because the objective is obviously the goal, but it's all more importantly, it's to build those habits to shift that identity to, I am a real estate investor. I am a short-term rental expert. However you want to define yourself, you're shifting that identity to, this is what I do. This is how I operate. And these are the key habits that I need to implement in order to actually hit my goals. Because if you he's mentioned this a couple of times. When we first met, like I was still an accountant. I wasn't even in this game. And it took me a while to shift that identity from Mike the accountant to Mike the Airbnb guy. Like that took time, and it took actual work. And it sounds kind of fluffy, but it's so true. But then once that identity shifted, it was like everything clicked.
Yeah. So I love what you said, because I think as you asked that question, like how to tie a bow around it, it's really, if I had to advise, it'd be two things: really to give yourself actionable things to do that you can track, right? So it's in the sense of like whatever path you're on or whatever level you're on, you know what the next part of it is. So like figure out how to put it into your calendar. And then the other part is really start becoming consistent with the rewriting of who you are. So there is a book that we both love. Our good friend Nick Spoon swears by it, which is Psycho-Cybernetics. And that book is absolutely gold, because it explains to you how to change the way that you are, and how you have wind up being the way you are, and how to teach yourself a new way of being. And what's going to happen is this, right? As you start taking action every day, and you start trusting yourself because you're actually doing what you said you were going to do, and then you join that with the Psycho-Cybernetics work of rewriting who you are as a person, and imagine yourself being this different person and changing your identity, the two things will reinforce one another. And so over time, that's going to keep growing and growing and getting better and better. And then the only other advice that I had that we hadn't even talked about is just be mindful of your surroundings, right? So like I went down to this conference in Miami this weekend because I'm a little bit curious about crypto, but what I really am more interested in is being around people that are doing amazing things that show me what's possible. And when I tell them what my vision is, it's never that's stupid or that's too big or what that sounds like a lot of work. It's always instead receive with either positive feedback or just like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. I knew somebody else has done that, or this is what I did when I grew my property management business, or this is what I've done when I grew my brokerage, or this is how we started developing lots. And like just be around people that are comfortable with your future. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, those are people that you're not currently friends with, because most people you're currently friends with are comfortable with who you presently are. But if you want to change who you are going to be, you might need to upgrade your friend circle, or if you're lucky, you'll grow with friends that also want to grow with you, which is probably the best thing. But at the same time, if your support system is not there, I mean, that's why I talk to Mike more than I talk to people that I've known my whole life.
Literally, yeah.
Right.
And I think one last thing that I want to throw in there, just to give it some context for the listeners. I was just thinking, I'll go first because I'm putting you on the spot. But what are some Keystone weekly habits now related to short-term rentals that you've implemented that, based on the level that you're at now with 40 something doors and all that, and you've got multiple businesses going on. So for context, like for me, one of them we talked about is that Sunday system for success. So I'm planning out, I'm reviewing our annual and quarterly goals. Okay, how are we going to move the needle this week? And now it's not just what am I going to do, but what is the team going to do, and who's going to run point on these certain things, and laying that out. And then the second one is having our weekly staff meeting. So every Tuesday, same time we run our staff meeting, we review our KPIs as a team. So team knows everything. It's full transparency. They see the revenue we're doing, our occupancy, our review scores, everything. We've got a whole scorecard that we run through every week. And then we talk about any issues that we're having and we solve them as a team. And then we figure out, okay, who's going to run point on this, this, and this. And then we go off and we keep going. And then the third thing is, depending on what phase I'm in or what challenges I'm facing, I devote, instead of consuming just endless amounts of books, can't see it, but I've got my bookshelf over here with, I don't know, hundreds of books. I used to just read a book a week just because I thought that was what to do. Now I'm very focus on what I'm consuming. So like right now, my big thing is I want to keep improving my leadership. So I'm going a lot through like Jocko Willink stuff, like extreme ownership. I just got his leadership field manual. I'm reading through that. I'm listening to his podcast. So any personal development content that I'm consuming right now is purely focused on leadership. So that's what I'm focusing on now. So I have my personal development on the education side. I've got my planning, and then I have our weekly team stand up to make sure everybody's moving the ship in the right direction. So those are some of my key habits every single week that stay consistent for particularly to short-term rentals.
Yeah. So particularly to short-term rentals, definitely tracking KPIs. And that's something that I've definitely started doing more recently. And I'm the perfect example. If any of our listeners are like afraid of numbers or afraid of tracking, that's me. So if you're feeling alone, you got E, because I've been that way my entire life. But it actually gives you freedom. It gives you freedom to know where your business is, right? So Joyce knows that every week at the end of the week, we do it on Friday. We track a couple key metrics. One of the big ones for us is occupancy, and obviously revenue. I've also started implementing a great book, Profit First. So on Fridays, another thing that's very specific to our business is that I go and I see, okay, how much did the business make this week? And then everything gets distributed to the different accounts. And so that allows me to really keep an eye on the business. I'm like, okay. And then I look, what have we done this trading week? What is our trading for the last 4 weeks? What is our trading for the last 3 months? And I look at it every Friday, right? So then I know, okay, occupancy is high, but our money is a little bit less. So what are we sacrificing? How much we're charging to get a higher level of occupancy? So can we maybe charge a little bit more and have a little bit less occupancy, but actually make more money? And then very specific, very, very funny that you mentioned that too, is just like really concentrating on the content that I take in. What is the purpose of it? And what am I trying to learn from it? Because at the same time, if it's not something that I'm currently looking at and I just start getting different ideas, a lot of the times, and this is just you starting to know yourself, I get sidetracked. And then I start thinking about other things. And then I start researching other things that have nothing to do with what it is that I'm doing. And they actually take me farther away from where the business is. So really learning that, like, as a business owner, you have that your main priority should be to really be cautious of and really be aware of what are the areas of a business that you should be working on, and then researching and or hiring coaches. That's another big thing that I do. I know you do as well. Is when I realize that an area needs work, it's instead of trying to figure out myself, go out there and try to find a coach or trying to find somebody to help me.
100%, 100%. Well, this is a good one, man. I'm glad we did this. This is something you and I talk about constantly. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of the listeners are looking for the nitty gritty on short-term rentals specifically. So that's the bulk of the content, but we like to sprinkle these in because these mindset, personal development shows are vital to your success, whether it's in short-term rentals or anything else. So take some time, analyze what you're doing. Something as simple as, I'm in the middle of it right now. I'm doing a 2-week time study where every 15 minutes I write down what I'm doing and I categorize it. You know, is this tactical? Is this self-care? Is this strategic? Is this family time? And I analyze this to figure out where's my time going. And do I enjoy doing it? No, but every time I do it, I always find it super useful. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, okay, I'm spending way too much time on this. I should be much more focused on these things and what can I take off my plate and delegate back to the team. Mm-hmm. So just doing these little things and building in these checkpoints, check in where you're at and remembering where am I trying to go. That's it. It's honestly that simple. Where am I trying to go? Where am I at now? And how am I going to get there? And how can I make incremental progress every single week to hit those targets is mm-hmm. what it comes down to.
Yeah. Incremental. There is such a key adjective to use there, because it's literally that, dude. You have to fall in love, and that's the mastermind group that I was with this weekend. We had a huge session with open table and open format conversation, and the reality of it is that everybody says at the end of the day, you just have to kind of fall in love with the process. Like there is no, sometimes time takes what time takes, right? But if you develop good, strong habits and you take care of yourself, you can make the ride a little bit more enjoyable and make it a little bit better and take care of yourself along the process and make sure that there is a Mike and that there is an E at the end of all of this that can actually enjoy the fruit of everything you created. Because how many people do we know that have just gone completely blind into trying to create without taking care of anything else? And just they're not around to enjoy it, or they don't have the help to enjoy it once they actually get there. So it's really about fall in love with the process, fall in love with the incremental nature of how life kind of progresses, and then just understand that along the way, you're in the perfect situation every single time, that you believe it or not. And it's the perfect moment, and you're experiencing the perfect thing that you're supposed to experience to do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. And I had a mentor, she was a shaman, that used to say, when you look at nature, when you plant a seed, you don't continuously uncover it to see how the seed is doing. You just got to trust that the seed is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing in that moment to then grow into a plant, to then grow into a tree, to then give you a fruit. But the tree is perfect the entire time. It's not just perfect once it gives you the fruit. In order to get to the fruit, it has to be perfect, healthy, strong the entire time, right? But even the tree needs water, needs wind, and sometimes the wind kind of messes it up, but then the tree gets strong, and it's just all part of the process.
I love how we ended on such a philosophical note, but it was so good.
Right? Was it good? Perfect.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, and we're here. Our community is here. Come join on the webinar, and then there's going to be so much actionable content, and that it's really going to allow you to really understand the nitty ingredient of what it takes and give you a clear idea as to what your next little step is, and just then take the next step, and then take the next step, and come into a community that can help you answer questions. All of our guys and girls that are in the community, they're constantly sharing questions. So a lot of the times I go in there and I want to contribute, but there is already so many people that have said so many wonderful things that I don't even need to say anything, because I would just be repeating things that other people have said.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. So this Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, go to strsecrets.com/webinar to sign up. It's going to be free live 60-minute training. It's only 100 spots, so make sure you sign up. Like I said, I only do these about once every 2 months. So sign up for that, and then join the free Facebook group, Short-Term Rental Secrets. We've got over 1,500 people in there now. It's been growing. It's probably over that. I haven't checked that in about a week, so I'm sure it's probably over that by now. But like E said, it's just been growing and growing, and that's thanks to you guys for showing up and playing full out and bringing your questions and your value. So we appreciate that. We don't take that lightly. And that's it, man. Any final words you want to wrap up?
No, I am super grateful of this community. I actually got a message this morning from a friend that I went to high school with, saying that she listens to the podcast and she put her property on Airbnb, and it just makes me happy. It just makes me happy that we're sharing, and that was my only intention from this. As you guys know, I don't do any coaching. I just love giving back and sharing the goodies of our industry. So I'm really stoked that more and more people are doing it.
Love that. Love it. Appreciate you, bro. Well, everybody, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure you hit that webinar, join the free Facebook group as well, and we will see you guys next week.
Cheers, guys.
Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.